for joining us. It's really good to see some familiar names here today. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Catherine Ellis, Claims Customer Proposition Manager, and I'm really excited to kick off today's session all about our partnership with Copart, how they support, streamline and enhance our total loss customer journey. The agenda is on the slide in front of you now, and I'm really pleased to be joined by Kate Birchall, our Supply Chain Manager for Copart, and David Simonite, the Account Director at Copart, who I'll pass over to introduce themselves shortly. But first, if I could just cover off a few housekeeping points. As I've already mentioned, if you've joined and you've got a blank screen, there are instructions in the chat for you to be able to bring the slides up. So please do follow those instructions rather than leaving and rejoining. You should find that sorts the problem out. But don't worry, if you can't see the slides, they are supplementary. You will still get the points of the webinar without having the slides in front of you. So please don't panic. If you wouldn't mind just keeping your cameras off and your microphones muted during the presentation, that just keeps everything stable. And you can participate through the chat and the reactions. There's a dedicated section for questions. The Q&A button is located at the top of your screen, so please feel free to submit those questions as you go along, and we'll address them in the Q&A session at the end. If you can't locate that button for whatever reason, you can put your questions in the chat if needs be. So I'll now pass over to Kate and David to introduce themselves before we kick off with the main presentation.
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, so I'm Kate. I'm one of the supply chain managers in motor claims. Been in motor supply for the last 5 years, but worked at AXA for 15 years. I've got responsibility for the total loss category of supply, which includes managing the business relationship that we have with Copart. I think, you know, reflecting on the last few years, that relationship has really gone from strength to strength. And hopefully you will leave this session also feeling that and understanding a bit of a flavour of kind of what we have achieved, but also what our focus areas are too. I'll pass over to you, David.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, I'm David Simonite, Account Director at Copart. Delighted to be here today. I've been with Copart for just over 10 years now. Worked with AXA specifically for the majority of that, but more recent times, as Kate said, over the last 2 or 3 years, I feel like we've focused an awful lot on the commercial side and the work and the processes that involve the brokers to really make sure the services that we're providing from a total loss point of view do everything that you and your customers need you to do. So I look forward to telling you a little bit more about that as we move forward.
Thank you. I think this one's my slide to talk you through. Thanks, Catherine. So we have held a very long-term strategic partnership with Copart. And for those that don't know, they deliver both our salvage and engineering services. They really are at the forefront of our customer journey, and they're there, you know, on ground at site, you know, collecting vehicles, interacting with our customers, making assessments in terms of value, and just really responsible for making settlements on behalf of AXA Insurance. We've both made extremely sizable investments over the last few years into process and into technology. I think most notably, we invested in end-to-end IT integrations, quite extensive piece of work. And that connectivity between systems has really meant, you know, a better, faster and much more accurate flow of information between the businesses as well. And hopefully, you know, you'll see that in terms of contribution towards improved cycle times and just better customer journeys too. And I think really this slide is a bit of a reflection of that collaboration and effort between the companies, just to make things better and give a better customer journey. A key area that we always focus on and will continue to focus on is speed, getting faster, quicker, better, at getting claims settled and finalised. I think David, coming up on the next slide, will share some of that internal investment that Copart make in their infrastructure and all the tools at their disposal that help support and enhance customer journey. But I think a few relevant stats captured here are that 98% of customers are being contacted within 2 hours of instruction, and 98% of vehicles are being collected within a day of instruction. And while they sound great, we know that there's more to do. We haven't rested on our existing process, and we are still challenging ourselves and each other to keep improving. I'll shortly, in a couple of slides, just give you a little bit more information about our accelerated settlement process, which as a result we've seen 24% of settlements finalised within 24 hours. I'll come to that shortly. So speed is super important. We know that's what you need, and we are focused on that, but actually accuracy is just as important, and getting that right and fair settlement to customers is at the top of our list. We want our customers to receive fair settlements, as do Copart, and our engineers work very closely with Copart to ensure that we're just truly aligned on process and approach. Audits into claims settlements happen weekly, and weekly discussions take place too. I think it's probably worth me mentioning that, in the wake of all those investigations into fair settlement by the regulator, no systemic issues were found, and our settlement process was deemed comfortable by the regulator. And they just confirm comfort in the way that we are handling our total losses. So we're really pleased and proud of that. Earlier this year, we finalised a market review into total loss, and that involved consideration from various stakeholders across our business. Lots of people involved to look into, who the best partner would be for us. And we concluded that Copart were the best strategic fit for AXA Insurance. We have recently just signed a further 5-year agreement, and we've got commitment between our businesses, to continue to enhance service and challenge the existing and get better, faster, smarter, and just keep looking forward to. And that's it for me on this slide, so I'll pass over to you, David.
Great, thank you, Kate. So I just want to provide really an overview of Copart operationally and share some of our strategic objectives and what underpins them and what it means to you guys. So I guess first and foremost, Copart as a business have over 30 sites across the UK. That's grown from 20 in the last 3 years. And one of our strategic aims 5 years ago was to significantly grow the number of sites and the amount of land we had to safely and securely store vehicles across the UK. That's really important for you for a number of reasons. One being that we're closer to you and your customers, which means we can uplift vehicles quicker, we can return them to our sites quicker, we can start that engineering and settlement process much quicker. Another one is that we've seen of late, certainly over the last few years, an increased amount of isolated weather incidents that generates a higher volume of vehicles. And if we believe what we read, they're only going to carry on and grow in volume. So we need to be on hand, and we are on hand for AXA and for you to be able to deliver services no matter what happens in the future in terms of those incidents. And then another key factor to growing infrastructure at Copart is the growth of EVs. So I'm sure a lot of you know EVs need to be handled very differently to ICE vehicles. From a storage point of view, we need twice as much space to store one EV vehicle as we do an ICE vehicle from a safety perspective. So investing and growing our infrastructure was paramount to being fit for the future in the salvage world. And also just as important is the fact that when we deal with a vehicle that's been deemed a total loss, we very much view that as an asset. So it's important that we transport it as short a distance as possible. We store it safely and securely on the ground, not in racking and stacking that can be quite dangerous and open to incidents, because we know a big part of our role within the services we provide is remarketing that asset for its maximum value. So protecting the value is of paramount importance. Also underpinning that is doing this with our own fleet. So you can see some of the numbers on the left there. We're running a fleet of diverse trucks that are just short of 400 at the moment. Having full control over our resources is really, really important, because it allows us to enhance our service. It allows us to control where our services are provided, again, to move for any change in demand and need across the UK where you might need it. Also, we've invested significantly in those trucks. So the average age of a Copart truck that you'll see out on the road is just under 3 years old. That's really important to meet certain compliance transport areas to allow us to access all areas of the UK. So kind of why is that operational infrastructure and investment important? Because it allows us, I think, as I said before, to get your vehicles when they are deemed total loss as quickly as possible. It allows us then to minimise any inherited costs that are associated with the accident and the initial recovery of that vehicle, which flows through to claims costs. It then allows us to inspect that vehicle as quickly as we possibly can. We have a team of over 100 engineers across the UK that are qualified to AQP standards, which means they can inspect a vehicle correctly and categorise and value that vehicle correctly. So all of that, as Kate alluded to, from a speed point of view, happens quickly. We then have a dedicated AXA commercial broker team that look to agree those values with you and your policyholders once all that work's been done. So the absolute aim is to get hold of the vehicle as quickly as possible, whether that's physically or whether that's using images, is to inspect it as quickly as possible, but also accurately, because we want to make sure the damage is assessed correctly and evaluation is put on it correctly, and then use our customer service team that are dedicated to AXA to settle those total loss claims. I think that's it from me.
Thank you. So as I alluded to before, I did want to just specifically touch on our accelerated settlement process that both Copart and AXA have kind of collaboratively put together. So for some time, we have heard and received your feedback about speed of settlements, and you needed us to be faster. And we agreed that settlements should be faster. Getting a payment and being able to replace a total loss vehicle is very important to customers, and potentially could be crucial in actually getting a business back up and running too. So acknowledge the importance, and we really did hear that, and we agreed. So we did look at what we could do to get better. So we worked alongside, Copart and AXA with our operations and engineering teams, and just considered what we could do differently. And ultimately, we developed a process that allows for settlements to be made to a customer before a vehicle is collected. And we did start very small at just 0 to 5k banding, to test and learn, but we could see how it was working, and we had real comfort in the process. It was delivering the right things for customers. So we extended to allow for vehicles 0 to 10k. And just based on quite limited basic information, make and model, Copart can make settlement offers based on average guide values. The feedback we've got from doing that has been very positive. We are now in a position where we are making an accelerated offer process available to about 30% of commercial customer claims, and we've reduced the end-to-end cycle times by 28%. We've even had examples where customers have received settlements within hours of Copart's instruction. So imagine the journey with that. Nothing but positive. And on average, customers are getting their settlements as part of this process within the 48 hours. It was a pilot initially, but like I said, we tested it, we extended it, we looked at it again. We can see it's fairly successful, it's working well, and it's now BAU. But we're not just leaving it there. We're not stopping. We're still reviewing that process. We're looking at new ways to reduce and shave off more time in the end-to-end total loss journey. And so we're still not done, I guess, is the message, and still working to improve. And we are listening to your feedback too. I think that's it for me on this slide. Pass back to you, David.
Thanks, Kate. Just to touch on green parts for a few minutes. It's been widely publicised. Copart invested heavily in a company called GPS, the green parts specialist, a couple of years ago, and we see this as a huge opportunity for vehicle repair. In short, to both reduce cost and make significant carbon savings by using recycled parts rather than new parts. So just to give you an idea, so the business is based in the Northwest. We're gradually increasing the infrastructure of the business to make sure that the service available to your repair networks is one that they can use as a first choice go-to when they need a part. We will double the amount of vehicles that are put through the green parts specialist and therefore broken for parts in the next 12 months. And what that gives is much more availability for your repairers to take advantage of this. The quality and the service is akin to buying a new or a non-OE part with the technical way these vehicles are taken apart and the quality assurance that goes through before a part is put on a shelf. So we firmly believe this will play a big role in both reducing the cost of repairs moving forward and as I said, reducing our overall collective carbon footprint and working towards that plan net zero.
Thanks, David. So today was intended to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour, should I say, of our partnership with Copart. We tend to do webinars historically that are an hour long. Today's sessions just focus on the 30 minutes, so we'd be interested in your feedback around that. But that does lead us into the Q&A session. So I can see that we've got one question in the chat already, so I'll pass that out in a second. But if you have got any questions or you want to raise anything in relation to what you've heard today, please do put it in the chat or the Q&A function. So the first question is from Jake. So thanks, Jake, for your question. When AXA instruct Copart, can the broker be added as an involved party, as we often struggle due to GDPR? Kate, if I pass that over to you.
It's probably a joint response, this one, but thanks, Jake. Full transparency, a similar question came up on the earlier session as well. So we're definitely listening now and hearing that this is a problem for you. Technically, this should be happening. You should be getting the broker information should be going through to Copart as part of our integrations. If that isn't happening, need to look into why. So it might be a bit of an IT question that I need to take away and ask internally to address, but recognise the frustration. We don't want you having to contact Copart and being turned away because you can't pass DPA either. So we probably just need to have a look into why that is happening, because as a process it shouldn't. David, did you want to add anything?
No, I guess there's just the way it should work is that yes, we have the claim system we use is directly linked to Guidewire, so information flows two ways. both from Guidewire into us and then vice versa. And our claim system is built to handle multiple parties. So where a broker is involved in a claim, we should get the policyholder information, and the broker information should be populated. So therefore, when you are speaking to our claims team, if it's there, then there shouldn't be any issues with GDPR.
Brilliant, thank you. We did also have some questions submitted in advance. So to those attending today, we did send you an email just to say if you wanted to submit questions in advance, we were taking them, and we did have a couple through. So it might be worth just covering those off. We did have one from James Key, who said, just regarding your partnership with Copart, out of interest, are there any other partnerships with recovery and storage companies to ensure customers are not being penalised for additional costs against their claims experience? How does a recovery and storage provider company get on to tender such work from AXA? And I think this one I was going to pass to you, Kate, if you wouldn't mind covering that off.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, those inherited charges for recovery and storage are generally going to be controlled via our roadside recovery contracts, collecting vehicles and storing them. And for commercial claims, that's ARL. In terms of the vehicles that are deemed a total loss, we do have a process that we adapted in roughly the last 12 months, where if we're quite confident that a vehicle is going to be a total loss, we don't ask ARL to store it. We ask them to deliver straight into a Copart site, which are open 24/7, and therefore kind of saving some of that cost and reducing some of the cycle times in the overall journey. In terms of what's going on in that space right now, well, there's actually a roadside review ongoing now. I believe the recommendations are probably going to be finalised in December. It's not myself that's doing that piece of work, it's a couple of my colleagues, but I believe it's sort of end of Q4, and we might then be in a position to let you know who that provider will be. So I would maybe suggest, if you have an interest in that, reach out to your CRM and they'll be able to give you a bit more information.
Great. Thanks, Kate. And then we also had a question from Jill as well, who said, will Copart continue with day one offers that both ourselves and our clients dislike the wording of? So the example of the wording that they've had from Copart: in the event that this day one offer expires or is rejected, we will proceed with assessing the damage and completing a new valuation. However, please note that the initial offer will no longer be available and we will be unable to revert to it. So again, I think, Kate, if I pass that one to you in the first instance.
Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, interesting, the term day one, because that isn't quite correct. And we need to have a look at that wording, because I think, as I've already described, it's not a day one offer, and we allow up to 72 hours for consideration and acceptance of an accelerated settlement. So we do need to take that away and just consider the wording, really. For now, we are going to keep sort of an expiry date on the process, because removal of that and just allowing an indefinite time for considering the settlement, we believe will start to impact the total overall end-to-end settlement times, and just we don't want to take away from the speed that we're really looking to give customers. And so we think that allowing 72 hours feels like the right threshold.
Thank you. I've just noticed that we've got a comment from Karen in the chat just saying that Copart should be contacting key nominated people at the insured as agreed, but often they contact drivers incorrectly. So it sounds like we just need to perhaps take that away and just make sure that our instructions are clear and whatnot. But is there anything either of you would like to add to that, or anything additional?
No, obviously I agree with the comment 100%. We should be contacting the nominated party on the claim, whether that be the broker, whether that be the insured, whoever that is, and that information, as I said, should be separated out in our claim system. So if there is, or if I've seen a few issues there, I'd be keen to just have a look at them in a bit more detail. But yeah, that's how the process should look.
Perfect. Yeah, I was going to say, if there's any individual cases that you have concerns with, please do raise them with our claims team via our escalation process or your CRM if you have one, because we are keen to have that feedback and work with yourselves to make sure that our processes are as smooth as possible. So yeah, please do raise them as and when they happen. But yeah, that's great. Thank you for that feedback. What I would ask Kate is, I know that we've touched very lightly today on things like green parts and our total loss processes, and I'm sure that there's a lot that we can do together with our broker partners to make sure that we're as efficient as possible when sharing information to enable total losses to be identified and all that jazz. Is there more information that we've got available that those on the call can tap into after this?
Yeah,
I think we might do.
Yeah, so we do have a slide that kind of gives you a little bit of information about what is available. We've got quite a library really of material that we're able to share. There's a webinar on green parts that I was involved in earlier this year, and with some supporting documents too, which is really interesting, debunks some myths around green parts. So I would encourage you to have a look at that. And we've got some documentation about enhancing some of those efficiencies as well, and helping to make those total loss journeys speedier and more accurate too, so we can all work together and make that better for the customers. So yeah, quite a few things available.
Great stuff. I think that all of those materials are available on AXA Connect. So if you go to the Make a Commercial Motor Claim section, there's key documents sections for all lines of business, but obviously we're talking about motor today. And if you scroll down to the bottom, or if you just click the key documents section, it will take you there, and all of this information should be there. But I'd also just encourage you that all of our webinars are recorded and they are shared on our AXA Broker YouTube channel. But also we do share a lot of information through our LinkedIn channel. So if you're not already following us, please do take the time to do so, because that's where we share a lot of claims information, where we share updates, hot topics, claims proposition material, to help us educate our customers collectively around our proposition and what they can expect. So please, yeah, do give us a follow on LinkedIn. That way you'll stay up to date with all things claims. Yeah, that's available now as we speak. So I think that just brings us to the end of the session. So if there's any questions that we've missed, or I've just seen one about escalation points for Copart, we'll certainly follow up with you after the webinar. And as I mentioned, the recording will be shared, and we can certainly share the slides as well. So thank you very much for joining. I think we finished 1 minute early, so a bit of a whistle stops tour, but we'll submit we'll send you over a feedback form. I would be grateful to hear your views on today's session. So thanks so much for joining, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.